Everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 2 of The Rings of Power. Of course, they released episode 1 and 2 at the exact same time. I already have my review for episode 1 up. You can go ahead and watch that. And this is going to be a full spoiler review for episode 2. I just got to address a couple things that have happened in the time since I've done my review for the first episode and finally having watched the second one. Look, the Rotten Tomatoes score is getting absolutely review bombed to a ridiculous degree. Like, it's like if you see a score go into like the 50s and 60s or something like that, like, okay, it's getting kind of rotten, but when you see it drop all the way down to like the mid 30s, that's when you know it's being targeted, and you just look at some of the reviews and you can see like, well, a lot of the people are just straight up admitting they haven't even watched the show, so there you go, really. And look, as I talked about in my first review and pretty much every trailer for the show leading up to now, it's pretty much impossible to talk about this without addressing the fact that, especially here on YouTube, things have just gotten really horrible over the last decade for nerd culture and fandoms and all kinds of stuff, right? Like, and I want to clarify. If you do not like this show because you watched it and it just wasn't for you and it didn't work, that's perfectly fine. You're just a person with an opinion on a show. There's nothing wrong with that. If you didn't like the show because it didn't stick close enough to the Tolkien lore and, you really wish that it had stayed with that, so even if you're fine with the show, but you don't like it because it didn't stick to the lore, that's also okay. You know what I mean? Like, you're just a person with an opinion on a show. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem comes in when it's all about the anti-woke mob, the anti-SJWs, everything's hyper-politicized and everything's being used for the culture war YouTube grifters to, like, make their angry thumbnails. And, like, when you get into that realm of things, to me personally, your opinion does not matter anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you might as well not count. Like, I don't see your Twitter account. I don't see your YouTube account. You don't exist anymore. You are not a person, but yeah, it's gotten insane. And we knew it was going to, right? Like, this is, it's The Last Jedi, it's the 2016 Ghostbusters, it's Captain Marvel, it's, like every single, they try to get several times a year, they try to find a new target for their hate campaigns. They will, they'll send out their thousands of viewers and subscribers to, like, oh man, we all hate this show, right? Sure would be a shame if that Rotten Tomatoes score got bombed, and then of course, when it does get bombed and now it's in the low 30s, now they get to make a new video, and in their new videos they're going to say, oh, look at that, everyone hates it, like, which of course, it's people like them who were doing the review bombing. So it's just a vicious circle, and it really sucks, honestly, that you can't, like, escape these kinds of people, and you can't escape from mentioning it, because I feel like I'd kind of be lying if I wasn't, like, bringing this stuff up, and that it's affecting even my mindset as I'm, like, trying to approach the show. The fact that all of these people exist, and they're trying to, like, paint a narrative about the show as it's coming out, that sucks, it really, really sucks. So anyways, on top of that, I've seen a couple more reviews since last time of the show, and a couple more people who don't like it. But then I've seen a lot of other people who do like it. So it's just, besides all of the culture war nonsense on YouTube, this show is going to come out to being sort of a mixed opinion on just regular fans who are just watching the show. Some people, it's just not working. And that's okay. Again, you're just a person with an opinion. That's fine. So, and that's, hey, the show, most expensive show in the world, it comes out to getting a mixed reception. Some people really love it. Some people don't like it. That's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the end of the world. These are just TV shows, guys. At the end of the day, like, I know that all this culture war nonsense and all these conservative YouTubers over here try to make it seem like it's the biggest deal in the world, right? These are just TV shows and movies, and it's just nerd culture. There will be more. If this show gets canceled, there's going to be more shows. And if this show gets 8 more seasons and it's a huge success, there's going to be more shows. And there's going to be more movies and more games and You know what I mean? Like, Lord of the Rings is a franchise. It's not going to stop being a franchise, you know? So, like, the success or failure of this show does not, like, mean anything in the long run, you know? Like, it's just one in what will be many, many adaptations and entries into the franchise. That's all it is, you know? Anyways, let's get to episode 2 of the Rings of Power. I want to say the Power of the Ring. It's the Rings of Power. Anyways, episode 2. So we are continuing on with our 4 plot lines that we have going on. We have our elven soldier who is in love with the human healing lady from this village. And, you know, just like with House of the Dragon, the exact same thing. House of the Dragon, it's going to take me a while to learn all these names. And I think this is something about fantasy stories in general, is that, like, everyone has obviously not a normal name. Like, no one is named Tim or John, you know? So, like, it's going to take me a minute to learn everyone's name, you know? It's like, I got to sit here for, like, a season before I'm going to be like, oh, that's right, I know their names now. Anyways, so we have that soldier elf who, you know, he's been watching over this town, who long ago was teamed up with Morgoth, you know, so the elves kind of just watch over these people, right? Like, I don't know if we can trust these humans. And only to learn that there's a series of tunnels being dug underneath this town for some mysterious purpose, you know, like the town next door was completely abandoned as if a giant earthquake had hit it, but except it seems to be orcs are digging tunnels underneath this town. Why? We don't know yet, but we did get a pretty cool fight scene against one of the orcs. And by the way, you know, just like everything else in this show, everything looks great and the orcs look great. You know, like no expense at all was spared with the costuming and the makeup and the props, and it all just looks fantastic. You know, it looks just as good as anything you saw in the movies. Like, this orc looked amazing, you know? So I've seen some people say that, like, oh, where'd all the budget go for the show? I'm like, what are you talking about? What, do you know how expensive that orc was? You know what I mean? Like, anyways, so that's one plot line that's happening. Meanwhile, the healing lady's son, you know, her son has found this sword underneath their floorboards. So, like, clearly their house was built on top of something, right? And this sword has all the markings of Sauron on it. So is this Sauron's sword? Maybe. I mean, it seems probable, right? Because he gets a little cut on his hand and the blood goes to the sword and the sword starts, like, rebuilding itself. And it's all, you know, it's all spooky and evil and smoky and stuff, right? So, like, okay, this is really interesting. We kind of have an inverse of what we see in the Lord of the Rings trilogy with the sword of Isildur, right? So it's what is it, Isildur's blade, right? You know, kind of that one was broken when it took off the ring from Sauron's hand, and then it had to get reforged, and obviously, you know, that Aragorn goes on to become king, right? We kind of have an inverse of that, where it's like we have a broken Sauron sword, and it's healing itself, you know, through the blood of this kid, you know, which, fascinating. I don't know what's going to happen there. And again, look, this is something that's bothering a lot of people, like, oh, this didn't happen in the books, and that's not how it happened in the books. And like I said in my first review, I didn't read those books. And even if I did, I would not care. This is its own thing. You know what I mean? Like, this is its own thing. It's essentially, you know, it's essentially, if you want to say fan fiction, although that seems, people use fan fiction in sort of like a dirty way. Like, oh, that's a dirty word. It's a fan fiction, you know? But really, it's like, they own the rights to make this story. So they can write whatever story they want. They don't have to be adapting a specific story. You know, like, they can take elements and pieces and play around with them. That's, you know, they can do that. Anyways, so you have that going on, and then you have, of course, I'm just gonna call them hobbits. I know they're not hobbits. I'm just gonna call them hobbits. Of course, the guy fell out of the sky in the last episode, and we're all pretty sure this is Gandalf, but the show's trying to trick us. You know, the show's messing with us a little bit because, like, he doesn't seem to remember anything. He can't speak any languages at all. They're trying to get through to him and try to teach him things, and, you know, he's like, they got to keep him secret. So, you know, you've seen this kind of thing play out in stories before. But then there's this moment at the very end where he breaks free a bunch of fireflies and he speaks to them just like how Gandalf would speak to the moths, and he, like, sends them off to, like, go send a message or to go do something, right? They make, like, this constellation in the sky, and, you know, they think maybe we're supposed to take him to find this constellation of stars, right? And then all the fireflies die, and some like kind of, you know, evil-ish music, you know, really dramatic music starts playing when all the fireflies die. And so the show's still kind of playing around with like, is this Gandalf, or maybe it's not Gandalf, maybe this is something else entirely. And I think, you know, obviously it's possible that both are true, you know, like maybe this is Gandalf, but I think this is going to end up being Saruman. You know what I mean? Because you think about it, like Saruman's like what, the oldest? Didn't Gandalf say he was the oldest of us, right? The oldest and wisest of us. I think it's gonna end up being Saruman. You know, because like then you can kind of lean into the, oh, he has a little bit of a darkness in him, because obviously one day he will side with Sauron, right? So I think that would be a neat way to kind of mess with people's expectations, saying like, yes, it's a wizard, but it's not Gandalf. It's actually Saruman. I think that would be a really smart way to do this. You know, that's just me. I think that's my guess. That's what I'm going to throw in there. It's Saruman. And then we have Galadriel's mission. Now, Galadriel didn't actually get a whole lot accomplished in this episode, because in the last episode, she was supposed to go to the Grey Havens and essentially retire, which we know is not going to happen. So she jumps out of the boat because her mission is not done. She's like, no, I got to find Sauron. My brother's mission, I got to finish it. She is trapped on a boat and chased down by a giant water creature, and at the end of it, she's trapped alone with this stranger. Now, we see like a small emblem that the stranger has on his necklace for a minute. I don't know what that emblem is, but if I had to guess right now, I would say this guy is going to turn out to be one of the Dunedain Rangers. You know, maybe he's even the great grandfather of Aragorn, right? Or great grandfather, you know, like maybe several generations from now, his son will be a Isildur, and then, you know, obviously so on and so forth, right? That's my guess right now. Or maybe he's not a direct relation to him, but he is one of the Dunedain Rangers, because remember, like, that's a whole thing, right? Like, isn't Aragorn's a Dunedain Ranger? Although maybe his great grandparents were not. I don't know, honestly. We'll see, obviously. We'll find out. But something's up with this guy. I suspect it has some kind of ties to Aragorn. That's my thing. You know, because remember, the elves knew who Aragorn was. Like, they knew who he was and where he was, and they were like, you know, they helped raise him. So it seems to make perfect sense that, like, oh yeah, we've known the whole Isildur bloodline. We've been with them for like a long time. We've known them forever, and maybe this is where that starts, right? And then lastly, we have, okay, so let's see. We did the possible Gandalf. We did the Elven Soldier. Oh, Aragorn. So Aragorn is he is talking to Sarah Brimbor. Sarah Brimbor. Again, these names, I'll get it eventually. The craftsman who we know will go on to create the Rings of Power, right? And he's talking about his great secret project, and he talked about this other craftsman who had created the Silmarils, which I'm not entirely sure what those are, but based off the short description that we got, it sounds like they are some mystical jewels that have essentially the lights of God in them, right? Like, you know, I forget the name, but you know, the Middle Earth has its own like actual creator God that created the wizards and everything, right? So it seems like whatever these jewels are actually contain the lights of God in them. Now, the thing that reminds me of is in the Hobbit trilogy movies, they had the Arkenstone, and I don't know what the Arkenstone was really supposed to be. It was just like a really shiny stone that the Dwarf King became like obsessed with. So part of me kind of wonders, like, are they gonna kind of make the Arkenstone one of these Silmarils? Because they seem to be doing the same thing. They described how, like, you would stare at these stones in their light and you just get lost in them for days. And that's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened to that Dwarf King, isn't it? So, you know, I don't know if any of this matches up to the actual lore, but like, you can see maybe they're planting some seeds because they're like, hey, this audience has seen those Hobbit movies. We can kind of tie things into that a little bit with that whole Arkenstone thing, right? So very interesting to think about. Anyway, so he goes to meet up with one of his old dwarven buddies in Khazad-dûm, right? And I believe, is this the same place they went to in Fellowship and it was all abandoned? I think this is supposed to be the same place. And I know those were like the mines of Moria, but Khazad Doom, is that not this? Maybe they're not the same thing. I don't know. I need to look at a map. Someone give me a map of Middle Earth. Anyways, so he goes over there, and he's basically what he's trying to do is get them to help them build this giant thing that can eventually create. It can be like their place where they create the rings of power, right? Now, why does it need to be so giant? Why does it need to house this anvil, just to build this thing? I don't know. I'm sure it has some magic reason. But basically, they're like, hey, the elves don't have enough manpower. Maybe we can ask the dwarves. And so he has to go there, and he has to basically meet up with his old friend, which he hasn't seen in 20 years. And to an elf, that means like nothing, right? Like 20 years is the same thing as like a week, right? So, but of course to a dwarf and to any human, it'd be like, hey, I got married, I had kids, I got this whole other, like my life is literally an entirely different life going on, like so much stuff happened and I haven't seen you forever. Well, how good of a friend can you possibly be? So, he goes there and he has to play some kind of test, and they eventually get back along, and we meet his wife, and they have dinner, and it's all, pretty pleasant, and eventually, he kind of answers, or he kind of asks the question for him to go ask his dad, because he's like the prince of this whole situation. He has to go ask his dad, the king dwarf guy, and then when Elrond leaves, they have this interesting conversation. The dad's like, oh, do you think Elrond suspected anything? Do you think he knew? And he's like, no. He's my old friend. He didn't know anything. He didn't suspect anything at all. And I think what's happening here is this is where the Balrog comes in. Now, true, we did see a Balrog in the trailer. And I don't, look, this is where it's kind of getting like, is this supposed to be the same place as the Mines of Moria, right? Like, is this the same place? Because obviously Balrog in Fellowship, so if this is going to be where they discover the Balrog, if this is the big secret they're keeping, is that like, oh, we just dug something up, and then everything's going to go horribly wrong, and then Lord of the Rings happens, like that way in Fellowship, by the time someone finally gets there, oh, everything's been gone for a while. Because remember, in Fellowship, everyone's already a skeleton, you know what I mean? So they've been dead for a while. This didn't like happen a month ago. This happened like years ago. So, does the timeline match up? Because like, how far away are we even from Lord of the Rings? Are we 200 years? Are we 1,000 years? I honestly don't know. Yeah, I know we're some undetermined amount of time away from Lord of the Rings, but all I know is I'm betting it's the Balrog, and that's the secret that the dwarves have. I'm betting that the wizard guy is actually not Gandalf, but Saruman, And what's up with this sword? I don't know what's going on with this sword. Is this what's gonna like trigger Sauron to? Maybe he's gonna. Well, no. I guess the wraiths wouldn't exist yet, would they? Because the rings of power haven't happened yet. It's kind of funny how like I have to keep on reminding myself of like, nope, that doesn't exist yet. The rings of power haven't happened. They're gonna happen in this show. So the wraiths, the kings of men, and all that, the nine, that doesn't exist yet. That's not gonna exist till later. Anyways, just another fascinating episode. We're still planting a lot of seeds. Obviously, look, we're only on the second episode. You know what I mean? So like, you're going to plant these seeds for them to pay off later. I don't even know how many episodes this season is. I want to say it was like 12 or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm enjoying myself. I really am. Like, and that's the thing is that like, I see a lot of other reviewers going out there about how like the writing is horrible and the characterization is horrible. And I don't see it, guys. I don't see it. Like, are you comparing this writing to what, the Tolkien books? Because Tolkien didn't write this, guys. I don't know if you knew this, but this wasn't written by Tolkien. So yeah, the writing's not going to be like Tolkien. Like, it's you know what I mean? Like it's not going to be like one of the greatest literary minds of our age. It's a TV show. It's a TV show on Amazon. Well, what scale are you grading this next to? You know what I mean? Anyways, I don't know. I'm having a great time. I'm invested. I'm looking forward to see what happens next. But like, I've seen some reviewers, like I see Jeremy John's video. Like, he's like distraught. He's like falling apart. He's fixing a drink and he's being overly dramatic. And I'm like, how is the, you know what I mean? This is much better than half the Marvel TV shows that we review, and I like all the Marvel TV shows, but yeah, like this is better than those so far. So why are you acting like this is some horrible CW show or something? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand where this is coming from. You know, is it just because you're so in love with the Tolkien source material? I don't know. Maybe that's what it really is. Like, some people, like I said, some people are kind of losing it. You know, like this, guys, this is a TV show on Amazon. It's not replacing the books. It's not going to change anything. This is just a TV show. You don't have to watch it. It's okay. It's fine. Because you know what? Like I said, there's going to be another TV show, and another one, and another movie, and another video game. And I guarantee you, 99% of that shit will not be like exact from the books. They will change things. Always. Even the Peter Jackson movies changed things. And I just... I don't know, guys. It's getting crazy out there. It's getting weird. Look, if you don't like the show, that's fine. But if you don't like the show and you're being weird about it, and you're being like racist, or you're being like anti-woke, and you're being like this weird person about it, you need to... I don't even know. You need some therapy. You need to... you just need to calm the hell down, you know? People are weird. People are just goddamn weird. Look, for me, the show's working. You know, it's got my interest to the next episode. And my other thing is, I already had Amazon Prime. I'm not, like, paying extra just to watch this show. I didn't have to, like, re-up my subscription to Amazon. It's like, I've had Amazon Prime for years. Literally all I had to do was press the play button and watch it. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to do anything extra to do this. But some people, like I said, they're I don't know. They're distraught about this, and it's weird. It's really weird. I don't know. Anyways, just another wave of culture war nonsense. But did you like the show? Did you like episode 2? Are you invested for episode 3? Is this working for you? And if it's not working for you, remember, that's okay. It's okay if it's not working for you. Just don't be weird. Don't be like this hate-filled person because this Amazon TV show didn't do what you wanted. It's a TV show, guys. It's okay. You'll be fine. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.